Hey guys, Marsing here, bringing a Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle video. And so yesterday I put out this top 10 EZA's tier list, as always, to fairly mixed responses. But the most interesting thing that I completely overlooked, and a couple of people mentioned in the comment section, I didn't make an EZA tier list for Saiyan Day. I decided to do this one after the AGL Cell and STR Goku and Gohan had come out. And because I loaded up the previous one, it kind of keeps your... it keeps the placements there, and you just kind of have to add the new units in. And I just completely forgot about our boy Path to Power Kid Goku, because I had a couple of comments on that video of people saying, you know, oh, I'm surprised Path to Power Kid Goku doesn't make it into the top 10. And a couple of people saying, you know, I think he's better than... definitely like Janemba, who was at number 10, right? And so yeah, that was my bad. I just completely forgot all about him, and he definitely does make it into the top 10. So I have done a revised list. I want to go over a couple of changes and also talk about a couple of the characters that got the most responses from people, just to sort of respond not only to the comments that were made about them, but just to sort of reinforce the reasonings why I've put them in certain places. And to be honest, after making the list, I then went and did, I think I mentioned it yesterday, like I had the late video that went up was the Goku and Gohan versus a bunch of the different red zones. And then I've been using the Cell team a little bit more as well since making this list. And I have moved Cell, AGL Cell up a little bit. And yeah, I was looking at a couple of the comments, taking some of the stuff into account. Like, it's funny, I always say on every tier list video that when people make comments and they actually give good reasons for why they disagree with certain placements, those are the comments that make me sort of take another look at the characters and maybe like re-examine some of my own thought processes. And even so, I still get the comments all the time on every video of people just saying like, this list is bad. And it's like, okay, cool, thanks. Like, I just move on. Like, that does not help me at all. If you think my tier lists are bad, that's all good. Just, you know, if you don't give me any sort of argumentation whatsoever of any substance, then I don't see how you think you're like, I'm ever going to change my mind to a similar sort of thinking as you, if you're never actually giving me anything to work with. But funnily enough, from reading some of the people who actually put intelligent comments, it did cause me to rethink some of the placements a little bit. So obviously we're going to go over Path to Power Kid Goku. He is a very, very good unit. Talked about it on the last episode of the Slot 1 Super podcast with Minato and Vilify. I think that this guy's EZA is really, really good. I really like the fact that they kind of leaned into the fact that a lot of people, I guess on release, he could be a main rotation. Like, you know, he was very good when he first came out. And then he kind of dropped into this role of being a third slot floating support unit because you could throw him on the team in order to just give the rest of the team that little bit of damage reduction, and he could still hold his own to a relative degree. And so they've kind of leaned into that with his EZA by making it so that all of the extra abilities that he gets, including giving the team that little bit of damage reduction and a little bit of extra support now as well, you get less orbs, or you need less orbs to do that if he's in slot 3. So if you're using him in that role, then he's very, very good at, like, you don't have to worry about getting 7 orbs. The funny thing is, I think I mentioned this on the podcast, but ever since I EZA'd him, I feel like I just get 7 orbs of him in slot 3 all the time anyway. Whereas I swear, like, before his EZA, when you needed 7 orbs, the number of times you'd only be able to get 6. But yeah, I think he's very, very good. His post-super defense is decent. Obviously, by picking up rainbow orbs, he has his own damage reduction as well as giving the buff to everybody else. He's just a very solid unit. He raises defense on super. Obviously, if you can get the unit super, he greatly raises. But it depends on the team builds, right? You're not going to be able to get that on every team that he's on. But he's still able to raise defense. He can do a couple of supers during the turn. So I do think he's very good. I definitely think he's better than some of the units that were lower down on the list. So he is going to make it into the revised top 10 that we will show at the end. Another unit that I mentioned, obviously, is the AGL Cell. I had a lot of people saying that he was underrated, and I guess my big thing was looking at him on the double STR Cell team, which is obviously giving him his better leader skill, but as is no secret at this point, right, I'm not a huge fan of that team. And it's not like it's AGL Cell that would get you killed. And when you look at what he does, and you know, go back to the showcase I did for him when he got his EZA, like the fact that he's got 400% attack and defense, and then he's got 35% damage reduction and 70% chance to dodge. Like, he's very, very good. Post super attack, his defense is incredibly high. And then if you do drop to the 50% or less HP, you have the rage mode. I think if the rage mode was easier to get, like if it was just available from his next turn and then you could use it whenever, I think that would increase his value significantly, because obviously the rage mode can be used to play around enemy super attacks and special abilities like AoEs and stuff like that. But you don't have a choice of when to use it, right? And if you go into the start of the turn at like 51% HP or more, then you just have no choice, right? Like, you can't use it. So if that was easier to get, I think he would be even higher. But I have moved him up the list compared to where he was yesterday at number 6. I ended up, while making the video and talking about these units in the green tier 6 to 9, I had him a bit lower and moved him up to 6, but I've moved him up a little bit higher than that as well. Because yeah, he definitely is very good. His individual performance is great. Obviously linked up with Tech Cell, he's really good. So regardless of what I think of STR Cell, like teams that you can run those guys on together, they obviously make a great combo. It's just, I guess, neither of them are slot ones. That's the biggest problem. You got this guy Tech Cell and STR Cell, and none of them are really like go to, you can rely on them regardless of the enemy, regardless of the rotation. Like, they can be in slot 1, which obviously hurts them a bit because they really do want to be linked with other cells. So the other interesting one, of course, at the bottom of the list, we have Beerus at 9 and Janemba at 10. Now, I explained that in my experience, which is how I always base my tier lists, I've had a lot of runs in the difficult content from the anniversary where Janemba just wouldn't dodge and got me killed. Because remember, he does have 50% base chance to dodge. He has 20% before attacking. And then if he's in slot 1 or 3, he has an extra 20%, which I forgot to mention in the video. I was saying that he has 70% in slot 1. It's actually 90 before he attacks and then 70. But as I said in that video, it's the same thing we always come back to, like the memes about UI and stuff from the very day he came out, is regardless of a character having a 70% chance to dodge, they could still not dodge. And the problem with Janemba, and the reason why he ended up so low on the list, is because his defense, if he doesn't dodge, isn't enough to handle some of these difficult events. So that's what I talk about when I say like a go-to slot 1 unit. It's a unit that you can put in slot 1 and you know that regardless of what happens, you're going to survive in slot 1, right? You might not survive the turn because somebody else might get killed, but like the unit is going to survive in slot 1. And obviously, there are not many of those units, but they are the ones I would refer to as the go-to slot 1s. And Janemba, his role is to be a slot 1 unit on the team, but if he doesn't dodge against some of the harder hitting enemies, then he is just going to die, right? And that happened to me in multiple runs of like the Formidable Foes event and some of the later Red Zone stages. But he is still very, very good. And this is what I tried to stress at the beginning of the video last time when we talked about Janemba at number 10, is that just because he's at number 10, that's still out of all the EZAs and Super EZAs. So I still think he's good. He was just at number 10. But a lot of people, interestingly enough, arguing that he should be higher than Beerus. Now, Tech Beerus with his Super EZA has been a funny example of a character for me when it comes to tier lists. Because as I said in the video yesterday, and I've said in every previous like EZA tier list, I have never been this hyped on this Beerus as like everyone else seems to be. Or I say everyone, a lot of other people in the community, at least at the time. Like, I've never put him super, super high. Like, when he first came out, I think he was pretty much at the top. And then as other EZAs started to come out, he started to drop down my list, and I had people commenting that he was too low. And now the interesting thing is, now that he's ended up here where he's at 9, but in like a similar tier to these other green units, a lot of people on this list saying that, a couple of people commenting that Beerus is too high, and especially making the comparison between Beerus and Janemba. A lot of people preferring Janemba to Beerus, because Janemba being a go-to for a lot of these villain teams, whereas Beerus, he can fit onto a bunch of these different teams, because as long as he has one of the specific allies, he still gets his extra buffs and everything, but he just doesn't like gel well in those teams. And I said the same thing in the video yesterday, that like he's a unit that I find I don't really ever use him, right? Even on some of the teams where he could potentially be run, like if I was going to run a Movie Bosses team, I would probably just run one of a couple of other different options over this guy. So yeah, I think I ended up moving changing the list slightly so that he and Janemba are pretty much equal, but we'll show that at the end here for our boy. And then the other big one that a lot of people still, I said it in the video yesterday, I think this guy is super underrated. And again, with this list, a lot of comments of people saying that Gogeta is too high. And again, everyone's going to rate units on their own personal experience. So people saying that he's too high, maybe they are people who have used him in a bunch of these harder events and he's gotten them killed. But I feel like he's underrated to the point where I see people making some criticisms. Obviously, it's not everybody who criticizes him or says he's too high in the list or anything like that. But I see people making some criticisms of him, and it makes me wonder if they have actually used him. Because as I said in the video yesterday, like post super attack, when he's fully built up, he's tanking like 5 to 6 million damage attacks. Now, obviously, that relies on him having his guard, which, as some people pointed out, if you're fighting a superclass enemy, he doesn't necessarily have guaranteed guard. But the difference is, I guess, when you compare him to Janemba, and why I've always thought when their two Super EZAs came out at the same time, I always have preferred Gogeta to Janemba, is at least now with the new UI that we have, you know whether Gogeta is guarding at the start of the turn. So if you're fighting a superclass enemy and his guard isn't going to activate, you can see straight away on the turn he isn't going to have guard. Whereas Janemba, you don't know whether he is going to dodge or not until it comes down to the moment, right? And if he doesn't dodge, he's potentially going to die. Whereas if Gogeta doesn't get his guard, you can always play around like where to put him on the rotation. And he does really good damage. Like I said, he's really good defensively. He also supports everybody with a little bit of ki and attack, which is really good. Like, I feel like when the anniversary teams came out and were starting to really take shape, he was like a go-to unit to run under that Gogeta lead, giving him the full leader skill as well. I think he's really, really good. So I definitely think he deserves to be on the list. But I have actually now, after sort of looking at some of the numbers for some of the other characters, I've actually moved him down slightly, because obviously we've moved Cell up a little bit, and we've included the Path to Power Kid Goku. So this is now, if we go to the zoomed out view here, this is the adjusted top 10 list. I've left Beerus and Janemba at 10. I think if it was up to me, I mean, it is my list, right? I would just drop Beerus off the bottom. But like I said, with the comments from yesterday, a lot of people saying that Janemba is better, a lot of people saying that Beerus was too high now, whereas considering, you know, people were telling me he was too low like a couple of lists ago. And then I've separated Kid Buu into his own tier, because the biggest problem that I had, if we were comparing him to the video from yesterday, is that I had him in the same tier as like the Cell and the Goku Gohan. But after moving Cell up a little bit, and sort of Goku and Gohan, I think are definitely not, you know, it's hard to place Kid Buu around that same sort of mid-level, because I think in some events and on certain runs, Kid Buu can be better than Goku and Gohan. He could be better than Kid Goku. He could be better than Gogeta. But it's in certain situations. Like sometimes he can slot one. I did a video earlier today using him in one of the difficult events, and he's not able to handle slot one in some of the harder events now. With his passive, especially when he's been hit 6 times and loses that little bit of extra damage reduction, even though you can use his active skill. So I think everybody above him here have arguments to be better than him, more so than he has arguments to be better than them. But then I suppose at the end of the day, the closest I would probably get is if we wanted to change this tier to being the same color so that he is like interchangeable with the 3 units above him, I could probably go with that, to be honest. I don't think Janemba or Beerus are better than him, depending on the situation. Again, like if Janemba's just gonna dodge every time, then sure. I guess we could even at that point just drop Beerus off the bottom and change this bottom one to green as well. But Kid Buu's ended up there. I put Path to Power Kid Goku at 7, but he's in the same tier as the Goku Gohan and Gogeta, because you could make arguments that Goku and Gohan are better. The main thing I was trying to stress yesterday when I made the list is, again, if you watch that long form video that I posted late yesterday of using them against a bunch of different Red Zone bosses, there are multiple instances that you can come across where like Goku comes onto the rotation and the enemy's nearly dead, so he can only do 1 super, and then you're not getting that build up towards exchanging into Gohan. And then when you do exchange into Gohan, the first attack he takes is a super, so he hasn't had any of his build up, and he can take a lot of damage. They can be very good, and that's why in this same coloured tier, you could easily argue them being as high as 6, but there are a lot of runs where you're going to get bad RNG, and they are not going to look particularly good. And events that have things like rotation locking, dodge disabling obviously would be dangerous for Goku, because the Goku part of the card can be a massive liability as well, right? Like, if he's not dodging, he can be taking a lot of damage from some of the harder hitting bosses, because the dodge is his only defensive ability, right? He doesn't have guard, he doesn't have damage reduction, so if he's not dodging that attack after he supers, he's potentially getting crushed, right? But you could argue him as high as 6, I would say. And then I still think there's a separation for like the GT boys being above these guys. I put Cell in the middle because, again, like I said yesterday, like I think that there is a gap between Vegeta and Goku, because Vegeta doesn't lose out on as much being on a non-GT Heroes or Giant 8 Power team than the Goku does, because Goku loses his defensive abilities, which are probably more important. And then, yeah, Cell. I think once you get perfect Cell out, you could easily argue him being better than both the GT Super Saiyans, but I think his first 2 forms are not as impressive. Obviously still very good. And then again, we have Cell and Buhan at number 1 and 2. Same colour, like whichever one you want to be number 1 and the other one to be number 2, I would not argue. Cell obviously looks better. I saw someone say now that Cell has a 220 team with the new Dokkan Fest partner, he should be at number 1, but as I said, I also have my issues with that Cell team, and just because he has a 220 lead now, like, you could argue that he's better than Buhan, but if we're comparing them on like a 200% lead, both linked up with their best partner, I still feel like it's very close between the two of them. They both have little things that make them better than the other one. Cell healing on Super is really good sometimes for mid-turn. Boo healing when you pick up the orbs is good if you need the health at the beginning of the turn. Boo has a guaranteed additional super, whereas Cell doesn't, which I feel like can make a difference sometimes. But yeah, they're very, very, very close. So whichever one you want at 1 and the other one at 2, I would be perfectly fine with that, as I said in the video yesterday. So this is the updated list. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. Now that Path to Power Kid Goku is on here, do you think that's a good placement for him? Made a few adjustments, and like I said, I always say this with every tier list, and that's the reason why I say it. When people give me feedback that is actually like good feedback, where they actually make arguments, those are the kind of things that make me think and make me re-examine my own like thoughts and how I'm ranking some of these units. So when you just put comments like this list is bad, like that's not going to have any effect on how I rate units in the future, whereas people actually making like good arguments has caused some of the changes on this list, where I've then re-examined some of these units, done a couple of extra runs with one of them or 1 or 2 of them to see, like, again, like just refresh my memory on some of their performance. And yeah, that's how this whole thing should work, right? Like, as a community. And I know it's the internet, so there's always going to be people that just put comments like that and they don't actually care, because they don't care about actually having a discussion. They're just like trolling or whatever. But it is what it is. But I appreciate all you guys that actually give decent arguments for your thoughts on these placements and everything. And yeah, let me know what you guys think of the updated list down below in the comment section. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Masked Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new, check out the links down below, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.